Welcome to Prep Central, New Mexico's premier high school sports show. This show is presented by Western New Mexico University. If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as on all your favorite platforms like YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. See the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. We hope you'll consider that. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Preps Central, the Albuquerque Journal's high school sports podcast. I am James Yodice, your host. I'm the prep editor here at the Albuquerque Journal. Welcome. We're into the middle of November already. It's hard to believe. It's Wednesday, November 13th, as I sit down and record. Today, we got a lot to talk about today. A lot of high school football playoffs. And we'll offer a bit of a recap on state soccer finals from last week, state cross country as well. State volleyball is beginning this week out in Rio Rancho as well on Thursday. So we first want to acknowledge our sponsor, Western New Mexico University. We thank them for being our sponsor and for their support of this podcast. I'm going to do things the way we did last week. We're going to work our way up as we start talking about the football playoffs, the 11-man football playoffs. Going to work my way up from Class 2A to 6A at the end. So if you're here for the bigger schools, stick around. It's going to be a few minutes. So let's start with 2A. All of the 11-man classes began their playoffs last week with the first-round games. And now we're into the quarterfinals this week when all the top seeds and all the best teams in the state are going to jump into the bracket. So in 2A, let's just run down some of the scores real quick from last week. Navajo Prep beat McCurdy 54-30. Eunice beat up on Laguna Acoma 56-6. We had Loving over Cuba 47-0, and we had Raton 41-12. Over Jow. So as we get into the quarterfinals this week, I'll give you the matchups first, and then we'll talk about them briefly. So we got Navajo Prep at Texaco, the number 1 seed. Eunice, the 5 seed, playing at Tularosa, the 4 seed, which is by far the most interesting game this weekend in the 2A bracket. You've got Loving, the 6 seed, playing at Legacy Academy, the 3 seed. And then you've got Raton, the 7, playing at Santa Rosa, the 2. So let's get into this and talk about these matchups real quick. I'm going to start with the Eunice-Tularosa game. These two teams played in the regular season. They're in the same district. And Tularosa beat Eunice 39-36, which is pretty much the main reason why Tularosa got the first week of the playoffs off and Eunice had to play. So Eunice comes in, two very evenly matched teams, two coaches who know each other very well, who served together on the Hobbs High School staff for many years. I talked to Greg Jackson, the head coach at Eunice, and he said, "Look, they've got to make some cleaning up to do. Turnovers, special teams, which of course is the same as it would be for anybody. But he felt like they're going to have to clean those things up if they're going to go into Tularosa and win this game. So that is a great matchup. That is by far the best matchup of the 2A quarterfinals. The one that interests me the most outside of that one is the Loving Legacy Academy game. That's going to be Saturday out at Bernalillo. Look, Legacy, and we've talked about them before this year, this is their first year as an 11-man program. They were 9-0 until they lost the regular season finale at Santa Rosa. So they dropped down to the 3 seed, but they get a home game, and they're playing Loving, who's going to be about as good a test, honestly, as they've played all year, including Santa Rosa. Loving is a very skilled team. They've played a very difficult schedule, more difficult by far than Legacy has. So they're going to come in battle-tested. This is a coin flip game to me. I haven't made any picks yet. I'll do that on Thursday. But this game is going to be an awfully tight one. Legacy comes in, with a defense that's only given up 57 points, all season. So Loving has its work cut out for it offensively. Defensively, Loving's going to have to deal with that great Legacy quarterback, Lorenzo Cedillo Urban, who's accounted for 41 touchdowns, 30 passing, 11 rushing. this year. So a really good matchup. You need great quarterback play if you're going to win games in the playoffs. Pretty much, you can't really expect to advance in any bracket unless you've got really good quarterback play. So Loving's going to have to deal with that. Legacy's going to have to deal with the fact that they've never been in this position before. This is a new environment for them. We're going to see how they respond. They've been off for a couple of weeks since that loss to Santa Rosa. And speaking of Santa Rosa is playing Raton. Again, those two teams are in the same district as well, just as Raton is in the same district as Legacy. Santa Rosa beat Raton 48-19. That was about a month ago. Josh Cordova for Santa Rosa rushed for almost 200 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. So Raton, on top of everything else, is coming off a short week. Both Loving and Raton are going to have short weeks. They both had to play on Monday of this week because of all the weather we had last week. Their games got pushed back from Saturday to Monday afternoon. So both of those teams lose basically a day and a half or so, maybe 2 days of preparation time. I don't know that that'll have a huge impact. We'll see. But, yeah, Loving and Raton both going to have short weeks as they go on the road. Texaco is the other team, the top seed, which is undefeated, mostly because they came from 3 touchdowns behind against Yodice in the regular season. So Texaco plays a Navajo prep team that frankly should not be an issue for the Wolverines. That's the one game in the quarterfinals, I think. I would expect to not be terribly close. We'll see about the other ones, but that's kind of how 2A breaks down. Like I said, Yodice and Tularosa will be in Tularosa. That's the game we're all going to be watching closely this week. As we move into 3A, same thing. First round games last week, quarterfinals this week. So why don't we get my notes organized here, and we can run down things. So starting with the scores from last week, through the 9 seed came into Albuquerque, beat Hope Christian 22-20. New Mexico Military Institute beat Hatch Valley 35-6. West Las Vegas shut out Ruidoso 26-0, and Hatch Valley beat Pewaukee Valley 28-20. So this week we've got through playing at number 1 St. Mike's, unbeaten St. Mike's. That's going to be a tough task, but through is a big physical team, which is what you'd want to have against St. Mike's because, look, St. Mike's is a bruising 3A team. I saw them play Academy earlier this year. That is a bruising team with multiple good options in the backfield. So through going to be a heavy underdog there. They're going to have to match St. Mike's physicality, I think, there. West Las Vegas is playing Robertson, so that game is going to be on Saturday. This is one of the many rematch games we're going to be talking about this week, like Yodice Tularosa in 2A. Robertson beat West 28-26 in the regular season, largely because Robertson stopped West on a late 2-point conversion. So this is a game West Las Vegas is looking forward to. There's already so much juice to this particular rivalry, and now West Las Vegas is going to play at Robertson, and try. They want to be thought of as one of those teams like Robertson, like St. Mike's. To do that, they're going to have to find a way to win a game like this. So we'll see. Robertson just has the one loss this year to St. Michael's. But, yeah, going by the first game, I think we can expect a lot more of the same. And 2 good quarterbacks in this game, C.J. Perea for West Las Vegas, Jesse James Gonzalez for Robertson. Good quarterback play, and that should be a fantastic game with a killer environment out at Robertson on Saturday afternoon. So we're going to see how that one goes. Hatch Valley is going to play at Dexter. These two teams are in the same district. Dexter really put it to Hatch last month, 60-6. As a matter of fact, that was Dexter's last game. It's November 13th as I sit here today, meaning Dexter will have had 3 weeks off between their last game and this game. It just so turned out that week 11 of the regular season was their bye week. Then they had the first round of the playoffs off, and now they jump back in the quarterfinals, not having played in 21 days. So we're going to see how much that impacts Dexter. It's hard to imagine that having a major impact on this game. Dexter clearly one of the 2 or 3 best teams in 3A, and judging by how well they handled Hatch in the first game, I don't think that'll be a major issue. So that only leaves us with the Nimi and Socorro game. So New Mexico Military is a 5 seed. Socorro is the 4 seed. These two teams played to end the regular season. Socorro beat Nimi in Roswell 42-35. So, Nimi turned the ball over, I believe, 5 times in that game and still only lost by a touchdown. So I talked to John O'Meara, the NIMI head coach, earlier today, as a matter of fact, and he was talking about that very thing. And he said, we must find a way to take care of the ball. That's it. Now, Socorro has a great quarterback, Isaiah Ocampo, who's a terrific thrower. I think he's thrown for 34 touchdowns. He's rushed for over 1,100 yards. He's just a tremendous dual threat quarterback, son of Socorro coach Damian Ocampo. Damian and Aaron Ocampo from Centennial are brothers, of course. So NIMI is going to have to find a way to take care of the ball. I mean, 5 turnovers is not surprisingly. Even with the 5 turnovers, they only lost by 7 in the first game. So undoubtedly, NIMI feels like if they can protect the football in this game, they're going to have a much better shot to advance. So this is a coin flip game. I haven't made my pick in this game. I'll make most of my picks on Thursday that are going to appear in the Journal on Friday morning. But this is the equivalent of the 2A game between Eunice and Tularosa. We have NIMI and Socorro, 2 district rivals, 2 teams that know each other well, and a great rematch environment. So looking forward to that. So that's how 3A lays out this weekend. Moving on, let's get into Class 4A. Quarterfinals, of course, coming up this weekend. Let's run down some of the scores for week 1. Valencia, we'll start there. Valencia won a thriller against Moriarty, 35-34. That was on Saturday. Chaparral, and this score puzzled me about as much as any playoff score I think I can remember in years. Chaparral was the number 12 seed. They had just given up 44 points to Portales in the last game of the regular season. They go back to Portales for the first round of the playoffs and beat Portales 10-0. I can't even begin to describe how bizarre this score looked to me when you consider that Portales put up 44 on the Lobos a week earlier on the same field, and then Chaparral comes in and beats them 10-0. Very odd score, but this of course is why we play the game. 12 seeds winning in the playoffs in football are extremely rare. We see this all the time. 12 seeds win in basketball pretty regularly. In football, this is extremely rare for a 12 seed to beat a 5, and even more rare for a team to win a game by shutout over a 5 seed, and even more rare still when that team just lost by 25 points to them the previous week. So everything about that score, very bizarre to me, but all credit to Chaparral, and I've talked about them before. They started the year on a 41-game losing streak, lost their first 2 games this year, so the losing streak was up to 43. They bounced back with some good results, played pretty solid during the district, played their way in as the last seed in the 4A field, and now they're still alive. So all credit to Chaparral. The other 2 games, Espanola Valley beat Manzano 14-6. I expected that game to be a defensive-minded game, and it was. Espanola Valley's now in the quarterfinals for the second straight year. And then Grants in the other game beat Silver 22-16. So here's what we have now for the quarterfinals this weekend. We have Valencia is going to go play at number 1 Bloomfield, undefeated. Number 1 Bloomfield. You've got Espanola Valley is going to play at Taos. Those 2 are district rivals. Taos beat them 27-7 in the regular season. We got Chaparral at Bernalillo on Friday night. Bernalillo coming off a bye week, and Bernalillo's last game was a tough loss to Taos. So Bernalillo going to try and exercise some demons there from that last game. And Chaparral, of course, anytime you're a 12 seed, if you're in the quarterfinals, you're playing with house money. All the burden is on the higher seed in this game, being Bernalillo. But having said that, this Bernalillo defense is really a tremendous unit, and I do not think 10 points is going to be enough to beat Bernalillo. It wasn't enough to beat Portales. I don't think that will be enough in this game. And then, of course, the other game we have is Grants at St. Pius. That'll be Saturday afternoon. I'm going to be at that game Saturday at Milne Stadium. These 2 teams played earlier in the year. Pius beat up the Pirates pretty good, 40-7. But I think if there is a seed that's in the top 2 in any class that I have a little bit of concern that might be ripe for an upset, it is St. Pius. And St. Pius is a team I think fully capable, and I wrote this a month ago, of getting to the state championship game in 4A, but they're still a young team. Grants has been playing much better football since they played here in Albuquerque against St. Pius earlier in the year. Grants beat Taos, who's the 3 seed. They were leading Bernalillo in the 4th quarter, gave up a late touchdown and lost 15-12. This is a good football team. So if I'm St. Pius, I'm definitely on notice here. This is a game that I would not be surprised if it were close and competitive for a good long way. We've talked a lot about Pius's offensive weapons, but they are still young. Playoff environment, we're going to see how that plays out. St. Pius was really dinged up last year when they got into the playoffs, missing some key players to injury, and they got beat pretty handily by Espanola in the first round. So Pius is more healthy this time around, but I do think this is one of those teams, one of those higher seeds that could be unnoticed this weekend. So I think that's a game I'm really interested to see, come Friday. And of course, projecting if St. Pius and Taos win, we'd have those two playing in the semifinals. Bernalillo and Bloomfield are on the other half of the bracket. And of course, we've talked about Bloomfield playing Bernalillo back in October, which was a tough, ugly win in bad weather. I know Bernalillo would love to play Bloomfield again, but Bernalillo's going to have to get by Chaparral first. And Bloomfield, with that defense, look, I mean, Bloomfield has only given up more than 7 points in one game all season, and that was the first game against Piedra Vista. They have not given up in their subsequent 8 games, and they had their week 1 game at Belen got canceled in the first quarter because of weather, so that didn't count. So Bloomfield's only 9-0. Their last 8 games, they have not given up more than 7 points to anybody, and that was against Bernalillo. So Valencia is going to have a great ground game in this matchup on Saturday. We'll see. They've got a good line. They've got a good running back in Michael Storms. But this Bloomfield defense has been as dominant in relation to their competition as anybody in any class. So we could be in store for a Bernalillo Bloomfield rematch in the semifinals next week. We'll see. But some interesting games there in the 4A bracket as well. Okay, let's get into the 5A bracket. Quarterfinals, of course, this week. But let's run down some of the results from the first round. Highland went on the road to Gallup, beat Miamura 20-12. Amiri Mumba had a big game, over 200 yards, a couple of touchdown runs, and Highland's defense played really well. They were much healthier this game against Miamura than they were in that regular season game that I covered between those two teams at Milne Stadium that Miamura won 36-31. So Highland wins its first playoff game in 20 years. So congrats to Highland, and we'll talk about their next opponent here in just a second. Los Alamos, the 5 seed, beat Valley 49-28. Second time Los Alamos has beaten Valley this season. I think they scored a combined 112 points in the 2 wins over Valley. Mayfield beat Belen 53-7, and Lovington beat Goddard 55-21. The Mayfield-Belen game is of note for this reason. There have only been 2 games the entire season that featured games from District 1 against District 2. One of them occurred very early in the regular season when Goddard came up here to play Valley. The Mayfield-Belen game was just the second game between the 2 districts all season. And I mention that because now in the quarterfinals, we're going to see a couple of these cross-district games. Highland, for example, is going to be playing at Roswell on Friday night. Los Alamos is going down to Gadsden on Saturday afternoon. So these are the 2 most interesting matchups we've had to date this year between District 1 and District 2. The other 2 quarterfinals, Mayfield playing at Deming, Lovington playing at Artesia. So let's talk about these games for a second. Highland's coach Philip Lovato, and as I sit here today, I haven't had a chance to verify this. I'm going to do that between now and when I write my big preview story in the Journal that's going to run on Friday. Coach Philip Lovato told me this is the first time Highland and Roswell have met in the playoffs since the championship game, the big school championship game in 1986. And I kind of laughed going back. I was only 19 years old then. That Highland-Roswell game in December of 86, Highland with Coach Bill Gentry, Roswell with Coach Jim Bradley. That was the first football championship game I ever covered for the Journal, which was such an exciting day. And I always remember that day. So there's a little bit of nostalgia for me as Highland goes back down to the Wool Bowl and plays Roswell in this game. And, of course, Roswell is a major step up in competition for Highland. From Miamura, you don't need me to tell you that. Los Alamos, and I said this last week, and I wasn't trying to offend Los Alamos. Maybe I did. I don't know. I never felt Los Alamos deserved a 5 seed. I thought they were a 7. And now we're going to see whether this 5 seed was justified as they go down and play Gadsden, which is coming off a loss to Deming in its most recent game. We're going to see. This is a high-powered Los Alamos offense. This will be pretty much the toughest team the Hilltoppers have faced all year. And, of course, Gadsden was on the road in the first round 2 years ago. They were at home for the first round last year. Now they have a first-round bye. So this is the number 5 seed against the number 4 seed, which on paper always should be the most competitive game. We're going to see. Lovington was undefeated when they played Artesia in the regular season. And I was supposed to go cover that game in Lovington, and I got just terribly sick that week, and I had to stay home. And Artesia really, really put it to Lovington that night in Lovington, 57-21. So Lovington struggled a bit down the stretch. They lost 4 of their last 5, but they still got a first-round home game, and they beat Goddard last week. Now they get another crack at Artesia, the defending state champion. Hard to say what to expect, especially in a rivalry game like this one. You know, Artesia wins the first game by 36. I do not believe we're going to see something that one-sided in this game. I just don't. Lovington still has a number of quality athletes, and they're still fully capable of making this a competitive game. I do like Artesia, of course. You'd be crazy not to, but I don't think we're going to see a game as lopsided as the first one. I will admit that the game that interests me the most, by far, in the 5A quarterfinals is Mayfield and Deming. So Mayfield, the 6 seed, Deming, the 3 seed. So these 2 teams played at the end of September. I spoke to Gary Bradley, the Mayfield head coach, earlier today, and we were talking about that game, and he said that was the hottest game he had ever coached. It was a Saturday game at the Field of Dreams in Las Cruces. Said it was the hottest game he'd ever coached in his career. And I was following that game from up here in Albuquerque on social media. Mayfield was up 10 points in the fourth quarter of that game, and Deming came back and won with a touchdown by its quarterback, Ryan Alfaro, with, I think, 12 seconds left. And Deming won the game in the regular season 29-27, which is a large reason why Deming got the first week off, and Mayfield had to play against Belen. So these are 2 teams that are very similar in how they play football, which is probably why they always play such close competitive games, or seem to anyway. We'll have to see what's in store. Mayfield's going to be a short week. They're playing this game Friday night, so Mayfield played Saturday afternoon against Belen, while Deming, of course, had the first week off. So this is a bit of a short week for Mayfield, but a short trip to Deming. I just love this matchup in every possible way. There's no reason to believe that this game won't go down to the last 5 minutes like the regular season game did. Coach Bradley feels like these 2 teams are about as evenly matched as can be. And you have to remember, Mayfield has been extremely battle-tested. If you think about the Deming game, which I referenced, if you think about the game they won at Lovington in overtime, 50-49, they went to overtime with Roswell, lost that game by a point, and they were tied with Artesia in the last game of the season. They were tied with Artesia in the fourth quarter, 28-all, before Artesia scored a couple of late touchdowns. So Mayfield is extremely battle-tested, and I wrote this the other day. Mayfield, among the seeds that are not Roswell or Artesia, Mayfield is the one team that looks like the outlier that maybe could make a run in this 5A bracket. That's not to say that they should win state or could win state. I'm just saying they could make some noise and win multiple games. Roswell and Artesia remain the 2 teams to beat, no question. But watch out for Mayfield if they win this game against Deming, which will be a tall task. Deming is a highly skilled team, and I mean they're not the number 3 seed for nothing. Mayfield's just a team I'm interested to see how it pans out for them in the playoffs. So we'll see how it goes on Saturday. So, having talked about 2A through 5A, we come now at last to the 6A bracket, and we got rematches across the board, almost across the board here too. Running down the first round, Hobbs beat El Dorado 35-14. Hobbs was a 9 seed. Las Cruces beat up on West Mesa 49-7. Las Lunas, special teams was the big thing for Las Lunas. They beat Piedra Vista 28-27. PV missed an extra point in the fourth quarter, and then Las Lunas blocked a field goal. As it was described to me, this kick was very low, however, not difficult to block. Didn't even get over the players' heads in terms of height. But Las Lunas blocked a 30-yard field goal in the last minute of the game, and they beat PV 28-27. And then you had Rio Rancho beating Sandia 47-17. J.J. Ariano accounted for 6 touchdowns for Rio Rancho in that win. So this week, Hobbs and La Cueva, that's Saturday afternoon. La Cueva, the number 1 seed, undefeated. That game's 1 o'clock Saturday at Wilson Stadium. The game I'm going to be at is Las Cruces and Volcano Vista, number 5 against number 4. That is Friday night at Community Stadium. I covered that game in the regular season in week 2. That was one of the best games I covered all year. We'll talk more about that in a second. Las Lunas is going to play at Cleveland. Cleveland's the 3 seed. Cleveland beat Las Lunas by 48 in the regular season. Los Angeles is going to have to come up with something incredibly special just to keep this game moderately competitive, I think. And then you have Rio Rancho at Centennial. Centennial beat Rio Rancho 43-27 in the regular season at the Field of Dreams. That's where this game is on Friday night. So 3 of the 6A quarterfinals are Friday night, and the other one, Hobbs and La Cueva, on Saturday afternoon. So let's talk about these games for a second. We'll start with Rio Rancho and Centennial. If Rio Rancho can get a performance from J.J. Ariano at quarterback like the one he put together against Sandia, they can have a fighting chance, and they're going to need that, frankly. I mean, look, Centennial's just the superior team. They run the ball extraordinarily well, and they're pretty good on defense. So for Rio Rancho to have a chance at an upset here, they're going to need Ariano to have another one of his big games. He's got some guys to throw to as well, but J.J. is going to have a big game. Hobbs and La Cueva, Hobbs beat El Dorado, who was the 8th seed the other night. I was at that game. And Hobbs played very well, and Hobbs was my pick. But to be fair, El Dorado has been so dinged up at some key positions. They lost their quarterback early in the year, who came back for this game, and then he got hurt again in the game. And so Charlie Dotson, the El Dorado coach, was having to kind of ham and egg it at the quarterback position and just try and throw as many different looks as he could. And they just struggle. Look, that's just the bottom line with that kind of lack of stability at the quarterback position. And they lost their top running back, Isaiah Quintana, to an injury earlier in this game as well. So El Dorado was just going to be tough for them to win this game, given the weapons that they were missing. So I like El Dorado going forward, just as a quick sidebar. They got a lot out of this team, considering how their quarterback position was so unstable because of injuries. They got a lot out of things. If they can figure out how to throw the ball a bit better going forward, keep an eye on El Dorado going forward. So Hobbs comes up now and plays La Cueva, which is a whole different type of animal now for Hobbs. Look, Brock Beatty, the Hobbs quarterback, he is. They're going to come after. You got to know La Cueva is going to come after him in a big way on Saturday. They just are. Hobbs is going to. I don't know how Hobbs finds a way to win this game. I don't. They're going to have to score in the 30s or 40s probably to beat La Cueva. And even if you do, sometimes that's not enough against that La Cueva offense. And I had somebody tell me that La Cueva in their last regular season game just kind of flipped a switch. You can take that for whatever it means, but the way I took it was they know it's playoff time and they know it's time to start playing their best football. So we're going to see with La Cueva. And I've said this a couple times. I don't think La Cueva is playing the best football of the top teams coming into the playoffs. Doesn't mean anything. I'd say Cleveland's probably playing the best football of anyone in 6A at the moment. Like I said, that doesn't mean much. La Cueva is the number 1 seed, and they deserve it. They've been the best team. But do they have the most momentum? I don't know. Cleveland does. Kind of like La Cueva did last year. La Cueva was not the number 1 seed last year, but they had the most momentum coming into the state playoffs, and boom, they just ran the table emphatically. So we're going to see how this pans out. Cleveland, their defense has really stepped up. They could have to go through Centennial in Las Cruces in the semifinals. We'll have to see how that goes. The game that most interests me, the game I'll be at Friday night, is Volcano and Cruces. Cruces was up 21-7 when these teams met back in week 2. Cruces was ahead 21-7 in the second half, and Volcano Vista came all the way back and got the game tied. Cruces kicks a field goal, I think, with about 5 minutes left to go up 24-21. Volcano scored on a crazy 4th down play with about a minute left. I think it was about 4th and 5. Scored a touchdown to go up 27-24, but they missed the PAT, so they were up 27-24. Las Cruces moved it quickly down the field, and they kicked a field goal on the last play of the game that hit the bottom of the right-hand goalpost. So Volcano Vista wins the game 27-24. So this by far is the most interesting of the 4 quarterfinals this week, by far. Matter of fact, it's more interesting to me than the other 3 games combined. Volcano's defense, as we've talked about, has been tremendous all year. Good tackling, aggressive, very confident. And they handled that Las Cruces offense pretty well in the first game. You hold Cruces to 24, you've done pretty well. And Volcano Vista had some offensive success after they were down 2 touchdowns, was patient, got their running game going. So, yeah, a great matchup here. Danny Amaro from Cruces, who had 4 touchdowns in the win over West Mesa, is a weapon that Volcano's defense will be keying on very much. Guardiola, the Cruces quarterback, has a big arm. I wouldn't describe him as a great throwing quarterback. Amaro is really the kid on this offense, I think, that makes things go. So I think you're going to see Volcano try and go after Danny Amaro in a big way. So I'm excited for this game Friday night. I expect every bit the close game we had the first time, and then we'll see how the semifinals shake out. A lot of different. I don't want to even get into the possibilities here, but there are some different mix and match possibilities for the semifinals where they're going to be depending on who wins. So anyway, that's how 6A lays out. I'm excited for these games this weekend and can't wait to see them on the field this weekend. Okay, we're going to wrap things up talking about some soccer and cross country. We had state tournaments in both sports last weekend. We're going to start with soccer. On the boys' side, Centennial joins that first-timers club. They beat La Cueva 2-1 in overtime on a goal in the 100th minute. Really a fun championship game to watch. The Albuquerque Academy boys won the 4A title in penalty kicks 6-5 over number 1 seed St. Pius. That game was 2-2 after full time. And then we had the New Mexico Military Institute boys win the 1A through 3A state title. They beat Santa Fe Prep 2-1. On the girls' side, La Cueva, the top seed, beat Las Cruces 3-0 in the final. La Cueva now has 17 girls' state soccer championships, extending their state record. The Hope girls won their 4th straight title in Class 4A. They beat Academy 1-0 in the final, district rival, close game there. And then we had the Sandia Prep girls win the Class 1A through 3A state title 4-0 over newcomer Cottonwood Classical Prep, which was playing its first varsity season. All these girls were playing at different schools last year, the ones that weren't 8th graders. They were playing at different schools like Albuquerque High and Del Norte and Cibola, which they're allowed to do if the school you attend does not offer the sport you play. You can do that. And then Cottonwood began a varsity program this year, and all those girls were able to come back and play. So Cottonwood had a fantastic inaugural season of girls soccer, but Sandia Prep's girls and Hope's girls both win their 4th straight titles. They're just, and if you're going to beat Hope Christian, this was probably the year. They were super young this year. They had over a half a dozen 8th graders or freshmen in their starting lineup. If you were going to get Hope, this was the year to do it. There doesn't seem to be any end in sight to what's going on with Hope. And there's some good teams out there to challenge them, like Academy, like St. Pius, which played Hope close a couple of times. But right now it is all about Hope. And lastly, let's get to cross country real quick. State meets held last weekend at Albuquerque Academy. The El Dorado girls and Rio Rancho boys won the 5A titles. Gianna Raymer from El Dorado and Corbin Coombs from Oregon Mountain were the individual champions there. Gianna won her 2nd straight state championship. The Albuquerque Academy boys and girls both beat Los Alamos in the 4A races. Addison Julian of Academy won the girls' race. Judah Daffron from Taos won state for the boys for the 2nd straight year. In 3A, Elijah England, congratulations to him from Navajo Prep, and Kate Henderson from Sandia Prep. They were the 3A individual champions. Kate has been a fantastic runner here in the metro area and quite possibly the 2nd best runner in the metro after Gianna Raymer. She finally got her state title her senior year. So congratulations to her. All the teams from Santa Fe killed it in 3A team standings on both genders. The St. Michael's boys won state. The Santa Fe Prep girls won state. And then lastly, Laguna Acoma. Tagoy Pedro of Laguna Acoma and the Pecos boys were the champions in Class 1A through 2A. And then Olivia Marquez, a freshman from Oak Grove Classical Academy here in Albuquerque, she won individually. The McCurdy girls won state in that division. So congratulations to all the soccer champions, to all the cross-country champions. We're going to crown state champions in volleyball this weekend at the Rio Rancho Event Center. I'll be out there on Saturday monitoring all 5 divisions. We'll talk a little bit about that next week, and, of course, a ton of prep football. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. Thanks again to Western New Mexico University for sponsoring the program. You can find this podcast on any number of platforms, starting with abqjournal.com. And we hope you continue to listen. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to visiting with you next week.